Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to the Journey to Greatness. 7 months, 7 months of 12 months with David McDonald, the GOAT. Day 210 of 365 with David McDonald, the GOAT. Happy Sunday. Celebrate good times. Come on. Do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do-do. All right. So good morning. We're going to get into our meditation routine. I will see you guys on the other side. 7 months. 7 months, 7 months. Consistency is the new currency. All right, welcome back. Good morning, Liz. I just realized something, you guys. What's 7 times 3? 21. Not 210. But then again, I guess it depends on how we're counting. So we will have another 7 months tomorrow. 7.1 for day 211. And I'm just going to do it like that. So let's jump over into our reading routine. We're reading A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. And it's doing us well. So I'll see you guys on the other side. Alrighty, everybody, welcome back. We just finished our reading routine. Now we're going to get into our journaling routine. Day 188. So, to begin in our journal, what I usually like to start off with is by writing about what I'm most grateful for. And in the morning, that is waking up and being in perfect health. So then I go to yesterday's activities and I write about how thankful I am for things I may have experienced. And then moving forward, anything I'm thankful of, anything I wish to manifest for myself, anything I have on my mind, I put all that down on paper and just document. So we're writing our journey and we're manifesting our dreams into reality. So I will see you guys on the other side. If you have questions about that, feel free to reach out to me. Otherwise, I'll see you on the other side. Okay, my friends. So we just finished our journaling routine, and now we're getting ready to close this thing out. So this chapter, we're starting to get into understanding ego a little bit more, and kind of what it looks like, how we're able to identify it, and I think some helpful tips so that we can recognize how we're responding to people as essentially be better people, and bringing on less stress on ourselves, right? By understanding how other people are responding or where they're coming from. So complaining and resentment. This is a good one. Complaining is one of ego's favorite strategies for strengthening itself. Every complaint is a little story the mind makes up that you completely believe in. Whether you complain aloud or only in thought makes no difference. Some egos that perhaps don't have much else to identify with easily survive on complaining alone. When you are in grip of such an ego, complaining, especially about other people, is habitual and, of course, unconscious, which means you don't know what you are doing. Applying negative mental labels to people, either to their face or more commonly when you speak about them to others or even just think about them, is often part of this pattern. So remember, even your thoughts. And that's why I say when I go throughout the day, I'm constantly autocorrecting. I'm constantly, just paying attention to the thoughts that I'm having, because it's easy to be negative and just think about stuff all day long, and not, you don't have to be saying anything to nobody. When you say stuff to other people, I think it makes it worse, because now you're bringing on two energies or two mindsets or two people, conscious people, and then now they're directing this energy or these labels toward other people. And so I think naturally in the universe of energy, when you got multiple people, pitting their energy against you, I think that's just not bad energy, to receive from anyone. And I especially believe if you're unconscious, if you're not as enlightened or not as enlightened, if you are one who is not awakened, right, and two people are putting their energy against you, I think I don't want to think that. What's the words I would say? It may be harder to detect that energy is showing up as an obstacle, or potentially, setting your energy off a little bit. Let's leave it at that. So complaining and resentment. Don't be a complainer. Find gratitude. That's how you counterbalance the complaining element of being. So on the next level down the scale, so the lower and lower you go, the more visceral and violent you become, more and more and energy fueled complaining or resentment becomes, right? So it's the next level down, operating from your lowest rather than your highest chakras. So of unconscious, you have a shouting and screaming, and not much below that, physical violence. Resentment is the emotion that goes with complaining and the mental labeling of people, and adds even more energy to the ego. Resentment means to feel bitter, indignant, aggrieved, or offended. You resent other people's greed, their dishonesty and lack of integrity, what they are doing, what they did in the past, and what they did and what they failed to do, and what they should or shouldn't have done. The ego loves it. So just be mindful. It's just the more and more we get to understand this thing called ego that lives within all of us, the closer to God we become, the more godly we become. And with that, we're able to make the world a better place. This book is so awesome. Non-reaction to the ego in others is one of the most effective ways not only to go beyond ego in yourself, but also of dissolving the collective human ego. But you can only be in the state of non-reaction if you can recognize someone's behavior as coming from the ego, as being an expression of the collective human dysfunction. So, throughout all of this journey, and we talked about this just a few days ago, the more aware we become or more enlightened we become by spending the time to learn, to be better, to see what gets us going, coming into the light, being enlightened. The more we do that, the better asset we become to other people. The more powerful you become. To be non-reactionary means that you are in control. Okay? And then not only that, once you come to a point where once we come to a point where we've learned that, okay, this is ego and this is kind of what it looks like. I see that you're reacting to me a certain way. I'm not going to say that it's your ego. I'm just going to respond to you accordingly. And that response that I'm going to give to you is not going to be one of resentment or complaining or anything negative. It's just, you just know how to handle a situation. I think similarly, like the guy in the gate in the sushi shop. I was getting an energy vibe from him. I could have said something to him. And I could have said, "Hey, I don't really appreciate the way that you're serving me. I don't appreciate the way that you're this, whatever." My point here is that I didn't. So you have to choose your battles. But then I think in that same breath, I said, at the same time, you don't want people disrespecting you. So you want to stand up for yourself and be confident in that, right? But you have to choose your battles. Case in point. When you realize it's not personal, there is no longer a compulsion to react as if it were. A lot of the time, when people react or they shoot at or they fire at you or they, verbally, it's usually nothing personal. It's something in their life that they're going through that they have to get through. That has nothing to do with you. You just happen to be in the crossfire of that angry episode. Is it right? Absolutely not. But the more aware we are of it within ourselves, and the more aware, and the more we give people the benefit of the doubt that maybe they're just having a bad day, then it takes a lot of stress off of. Excuse me. It takes a lot of stress off of our shoulders to say, well, that was rude or that was mean. And we just kind of brush it off and just keep going. We let them be in their state, but we don't let anybody shake us in our state. By not reacting to the ego, whether it be yours or somebody else's, you will often be able to bring out sanity in others, which is unconditioned consciousness as opposed to the conditioned. So for a lot of people who operate strictly from the ego, unrecognized ego, they just go, they just respond. They're not as conscious or awakened. It's in them. They're able to become and step into their greatness. However, without that awareness that ego exists, and that, we should live from a emotional rather than, thinking type of perspective. When we respond to people without our ego, it usually highlights or it usually changes the dynamic of the relationship. Those are the conversations I feel like are the most fun, because they're expecting for you to just to go bad, just go hard on them. But then you sidestep and you're like, well, I don't think that's a good idea, but respectfully, X, Y, and Z, right? Or and respectfully, because and but, you guys know that, right? When you're responding to someone, instead of saying but, everything before the but doesn't matter after you say but if you say and, there you go, right? And if you say and, then it actually acts as a continuation in somebody's brain, so it doesn't sound like you're making a counter argument. So if you're legitimately not making a counter argument, use the word and. I understand your frustration, and I would feel the same way too. And I feel that you also offended me, right? I understand your frustration, and I would feel the same too, but you offended me too, right? You see how the difference is? Oh, but what? No, but you did it first, and then whatever. Sorry. So your greatest protection, at times you have to take practical steps to protect yourself from deeply unconscious people. This you cannot do without making them enemies. Your greatest protection, however, is being conscious. Somebody who becomes an enemy, if you personalize the unconscious, that is the ego. So if you take what they're saying personally, which is their ego, non-reaction is not a weakness, but a strength. If you're walking down the street and somebody cusses you out, right, and it's no threat to your life, you have to seriously ask yourself the question, do I go and punch this person in the mouth? Or do I continue walking down the street? Ooh, let's get a little bit more tricky. You're walking down the street and somebody verbally assaults your significant other. Then what do? Do you go punch the person in the mouth? Or do you continue walking down the street? Non-reaction is your greatest protection. It's not a weakness. It is a strength. For us to be... The social dysfunction says you have to go over there and hit that person, right? Or at least getting into a competition with them. There's multiple things to think about. First off, if you're a business owner of any kind and you punch somebody in their mouth just because they're verbally assaulting you or your significant other, and it deeply hurts you, right? You can get sued. You can lose everything. Over what? So, or at least you could lose a lot of things. But over what? Not only that, let's take the material side out of it. Let's say you go hit the person and you guys get into a huge fight. Not only are you putting yourself at risk and now your wife at risk of greater danger, or your husband at greater danger, then, but you're also hurting another person. So there's multiple dimensions on why I feel like that stuff not acceptable. And it does take a certain level of maturity also, obviously, to come to that point. So walking away and understanding, not allowing people's words to affect you is a strength, not a weakness. So unless your life is in danger and somebody puts their hands on you or puts their hands on your significant other, then that's a different story. Then you're acting in self-defense. But anything other than that, you gotta let it roll. Well, you don't have to do anything. I let it roll. And then to a degree also, when it comes to, somebody calling you out of your name in a professional setting, like let's say you're receiving some type of customer service, it goes back to that same point. There's a certain level when you cannot allow people to disrespect you, but it's not to raise or elevate the situation. If somebody's being rude, if somebody's being intolerable, and you have to work with them because of the setting that you're in, then feel free to express yourself. Just express yourself, and as you do that, do it from a non-egoic standpoint, right? There's nothing wrong with that, and that's having that confidence to move forward through life and not just be abused and kicked all over the place, because sometimes people will try to do that. But to escalate or elevate the situation to a fight where it starts getting emotional and it gets all crazy, then that's a whole different story. But being composed and, addressing things as they are, there's nothing wrong with that. The ego loves to complain and feel resentful, not only about other people, but also about situations. I'm being treated unfairly. And the ego's greatest enemy of all of this, of course, the present moment, which is to say, life itself. There is no ego in telling the waiter, here we go, that your soup is cold and needs to be heated up. If you stick to the facts, which are always neutral, how dare you serve me cold soup? That's complaining. That is me here that loves to feel personally offended by a cold cup of soup and is going to make the most of it. A me that enjoys making someone wrong. So, waiter, our food is cold. Can you please send it back to the kitchen to be heated up? How dare you bring me cold food? I'm paying hard-earned money for this. I do not like being served cold food. Period. When my food is cold, I get personally offended. But now I see that's a egoic. That's very interesting. That's an egoic standpoint. But I don't too often get served cold food, so it's, But you guys understand like the tone though? You see like the breath behind, the request, complaining versus just being real. When you're real, that truth is usually very neutral. So in this way, you are becoming free. The ego, free of the unobserved mind. The moment you become aware of the ego in you, it is strictly speaking no longer the ego, but just an old conditioned mind pattern. Ego implies unawareness. Awareness and ego cannot coexist. The old mind pattern or mental habit may still survive and reoccur for a while because it has momentum of thousands of years of collective human consciousness behind it. But every time it is recognized, it is weakened. So the more and more and more and more and more and more and more you pay attention to your thoughts and you go throughout your day and you say, oh, that was ego. Ooh, that was ego. Ooh, I shouldn't have done that. I should have did this. And you're correcting yourself. And you do that year in and year out. You weaken and weaken and weaken and weaken and weaken. Like I'm starting to get to the point, you guys, where I can't even watch TV shows. That a lot of the stuff, or like movies, like that stuff makes me sick. And I don't know what it is. It's really strange. But like I used to love movies. And I mean I still love movies, but I don't watch a lot of TV. I don't watch a lot of movies. But every now and again I like to Netflix and chill. And so it's like if I do that, it's like nowadays, it's like when I watch, it's super entertaining and everything, but like I just realized this yesterday. I'm just like, man, a lot of movies just don't make me feel good, like it's weird. And it could be like because it's so extreme, to see like people shoot other people and like kill other people. It's very interesting. And I know it's just a movie, but it's like, you got everything that we digest, especially in our free time when we're chilling and our mind is in a safe place and we're putting these messages in our minds. I think it can be toxic. And, it's just, I don't know. It's just very interesting to me. So the more and more you become observed of, your ego, pretty much, the more free you become. There are many people who are always waiting for the next thing to react against, to feel annoyed or disturbed about, and it never takes long before they find it. This is an outrage, they say. How dare you? I resent this. They are addicted to upset and anger as others are to a drug. Through reacting against this, or that they assert a strengthen their feeling of self. So a lot of people are addicted to being angry and just being negative people, and they look for reactions. They're antagonizers. So for them to come across somebody like you or me, and for them to use this antagonistic behavior or these tendencies that their ego has attached to firmly and has dug its vipers deeply into the root energy of what it means to be negative. When they come across people like you and I, and we respond to them, we sidestep their negativity, and then we respond to them with love, that brings out their natural highness and their natural inner godliness. And that's what's the most beautiful transformation, because it's like for a split second, you can see directly into the soul of that person and what they're really about. And it's like they stop in a moment of time, they're like frozen, and then you have this little exchange, and then boom, you leave, and then they go back to being whatever they are. It's a really interesting thing to experience. But in order for us to give people that space, in order for us to be the non-reactionary beings and loving providers, we have to know who we are, and we have to know and be able to see where they're coming from, so we know how to react and accordingly. So a long-standing resentment is called a grievance. So resentment is holding something against somebody, essentially. To carry a grievance is to be in a permanent state of against. And that is why grievances constitute a significant part of many people's ego. Collective grievances can survive for centuries in the psyche of a nation or tribe and fuel a never-ending cycle of violence. Ooh, that's scary. So remember, we have personal consciousness, collective consciousness, right? The personal consciousness is you and me. Collective consciousness is me, you, Sue, Ju, Boo, whoever out there in the world. Okay, so there's two different consciousnesses. So it's important for us to identify and realize which consciousness is affecting us. So the collective consciousness, when we hold grievances, it's like religion wars, right? People and groups of people have been in battle for centuries and have not liked each other because of differences in religion. That has led to tons of religious wars, and then so on and so forth, right? So that's a collective consciousness holding a grievance against a certain particular race, culture or religion, and then the list goes on and on. And then the personal grievance is just you holding something against somebody else. The thing about it is when you do that, you're just carrying around a bunch of old garbage that doesn't mean anything, because you've evolved from that space already. So if you're holding somebody, who owes you money, from years ago, I mean, that's just old baggage that just, brings more pressure on you. If somebody hurt you, if an ex significant other hurt you, or, made you feel some kind of way, or whatever it might have been, and you're still holding on to that, you got to let it go, because it's only bringing in more stress and more baggage on your shoulders. It doesn't mean anything anymore. So letting it go is the best way for you to free your ego and transcend to the next level. And then naturally, when you let that garbage go, now you're able to open your arms to a loving whoever who comes in your life. And then you guys get married in the sunset. You can't manifest who you want. That's another really, really important thing. And the way you manifest who you want, even if you're with someone who hasn't matured or who hasn't grown into the person that you want them to be, you can gently support them by, first off, by having conversation and helping understand where they're coming from, why they do the things they do, understanding their mentality, and then growing through that, and then holding them in a high light. So if they're acting, or if a person's acting the opposite of how you see them, or who that they know they are, and you continue to hold them in a light of support and love and non-judgment, guess what? They're going to rise to the occasion. You have to just believe in them, right? And then if you get to a point where you're broken and you're like, hey, pause, back up. If you get to a point where you feel like, man, I cannot trust this person, you cut them off and just keep going, right? It's not that easy, David. Trust me, it is. You got to just dig deep down inside. It's all temporary experience in a physical life anyway. So then you really got to assess, is this really worth it to me? But to each his own. A grievance is a strong negative emotion connected to an event in the sometimes distant past that is being kept alive by compulsive thinking. Get out of your head. Get out of your head. By retelling the story in the head or out loud of what someone did to me or what someone did to us. A grievance will also contaminate other areas in your life. For example, while you think about a grievance, while you think about and feel your grievance, its negative emotional energy can distort your perception of an event that is happening in the present or influence the way in which you speak or behave towards someone in the present. I knew a lady that I met recently who was awesome, and but she just had a very interesting perspective on men. She grew up around men. She was always around men, and her perspective on men was that, well, to a degree, certain classes of men or certain types of men, they were all dogs, and she knows how to think like a man, and so I think her perception is a little bit distorted. Something happened to her potentially in her near or far past, and she was holding on to that baggage. Because what you focus on is also what you get. So if you think that, men are, all men are scumbags and they're all living from a physical, motivation only, and they only want to, do that thing with you, and they don't want to get to know who you are spiritually. They don't want to get to know who you are mentally. If you think that all men are that way, then there's a strong possibility you're going to continue manifesting men like that in your life, or vice versa. Because there's a lot of women out there nowadays who think like men, and they operate and move a certain way. But if you're a man and who's really a nice guy, and you think that all women act that way, or if you're a man and you're just who you are, I won't even put a descriptor to that. But if you're just a person and you think all women think that way, then you're going to continue to manifest those type of people. If you feel like there's nobody who can be trusted, you're going to truly manifest people who cannot be trusted. And those are people you really don't even want to be around. So again, focusing on what you want rather than what you don't want is a really important reminder. And then holding grievances against, again, collectively. I know in Asian cultures, when they look in America, like I've met people who said, just because you're black, I didn't think that you'd be such a cool person. Like I met people when I was studying in Sweden. I met a girl from Korea, and she said that to me. She's like, I was like, why did you say that? And she goes, well, it's because in Korea, black people are known as like gangsters. They're known as, like just bad people, and then we watched music videos, and it's just kind of like there's a lot of people in Korea who admire, the culture. But a lot of us are just scared. And I was just like, holy crud. That is a social dysfunction for real. There's a lot of black people that are freaking awesome. Pause. All black people are awesome. Everybody in this world is awesome. People just make really bad decisions. And then obviously the media pumps a certain image about people across the world. And so my point here is though I can't have that conversation, right, if I don't know who I am and if I take that personally. But my point here is I don't walk through life living from that limitation or living from that stereotype that might be. I can't sit here and say, oh, well, all Koreans think that all black people are bad. Or I can't sit here and say, oh, all white people think that all black people are bad because we were in slavery for however many hundreds of years, right? But again, that's just something that to hold on to that is just baggage. Not all white people, quote unquote, are racist. Some people are, right? But not all of them are. Some Hispanics are racist. Some black people are racist against their own black people. Some Hispanics are racist against their own people. It's just a people thing, like when you look at it from a grand scheme. And yes, there are other things that we can get into potentially and talk about. But the point here is to hold grievances about stuff and to hold this narrow-minded perspective. Like you're going to continue to manifest these scenarios in your life, or you can manifest people who, really genuinely care about you. And I think that's something to consider. One strong grievance is enough to contaminate large areas of your life and keep you in the grip of the ego. And to finish off, if you do become aware of the grievance, both on the level of thought as well as emotion, that is to say you are aware of your thoughts that keep it alive, and feel the emotion that is the body's response to those thoughts. Don't try to let go of the grievance. Trying to let go, to forgive, does not work. Forgiveness happens naturally when you see that it has no purpose other than to strengthen a false sense of self, to keep the ego in place. The seeing is freeing. Jesus' teaching to forgive your enemies is essentially about the undoing of one of the main egoic structures in the human mind. But it's so hard to forgive. How can you forgive somebody who hurt you so badly? That's a really good question. So therefore, I'm not going to forgive them, right? So therefore, if you do forgive them, that brings you more peace and more freedom. One less thing to think about, in my opinion. The past has no power to stop you from being present now. The past has no power to stop you from being in the present now. Only your grievance about the past can do that. And what is grievance? The baggage of old thought and emotion. So evolve like a snake and shed that skin. Leave it at the door. That's what they say. So overall, continue evolving. The more and more you do, the more and more we do, the better people we can be in society, the less stressful life we can live, the more we can impact people on a day-to-day touch basis. And I think that's just healthy for everyone. So let's see here. Love you. Love you, Craig. Good morning. Okay, so what we'll do here to finish out is our mantra. So you guys can feel free to repeat after me to finish this out. This is my life. I am aware. I take responsibility for my reality and thoughts. I recognize I have the power to manifest the best possible life, a life of wealth, love, and peace. I truly believe I have zero limitations. I trust my instincts, God, and the universe. I am ready to transcend. I have arrived, and so it is. Thank you, everybody who jumped on the messenger board this morning. Thank you for letting me know that you're here. Good morning and happy Sunday. 7 months is abound. 7 months is here. 7 months is here. Tomorrow will be 7.1. 7 months, 0.1. Everybody watching at home, thank you for being present with me and sending me the energy and support through the camera and universally. And I will see you guys tomorrow at 5 a.m. Day 211 of 365, officially 7 months. I love you guys. Have the best day of your life and eat a lot of food. See ya.